Okay, so I think it's safe to say that the majority of people watching this video right now have one of these. It's a dust separator, or at least a variant of it, whether it's the dust topper, the cyclone, the Centec, or any of the other hundreds of them out there. I think the majority of people watching this video right now have one of these because they work really well. If you're not sure what one of these are, it's just a dust separator that separates the dust from whatever machine that you're using from your vacuum. So your vacuum's not taking in all the dust that clogs up your filter. It saves the life of your filter like by 100 times. And like I said, there's 100 different varieties of them out there. They all kind of do the same thing. They all work pretty well. My favorite is the dust topper, always has been, probably always will be. And there's one thing wrong with them all. Not the actual separator unit itself, it's the bucket. They're too small. They're always full. They're always a pain to empty. You make a mess. Son of a bitch. Ah. Now in that video, I did a test between a 5-gallon, a 6-gallon, and a 7-gallon bucket and found out the 7-gallon bucket actually performs a little bit better. But 7 gallons still isn't that much when you're using a table saw, you're ripping down a ton of stuff, or if you're using a planer, within like 5 minutes of a planer, this thing's full and it's sucking dust right into your vacuum, basically making everything irrelevant. So that made me think, how can I fix this to where this is gonna be 100 times better? So I figured out a solution, and it's this. I call it the drum because it's a drum. And this thing is 55 gallons. So if you're running a 5-gallon bucket, it's 11 times bigger. And if you're running a 7-gallon bucket, it's bigger. It's just bigger. You could be running a planer all day and not fill this thing up. Or you could use a table saw for weeks and not fill this thing up. Because it's just a bucket. It's just a really big bucket. And emptying it, yeah, there's a problem there. Son of a bitch! God damn it! But I figured out a solution to that as well. And I call it the bag, because it's a bag. So now with having a bag in here, the second you turn the vacuum on, the bag's just basically gonna get sucked up in here. So I solved that as well with 2 different options. Option 1, I call the brick, just because it's a brick and there, it's gonna hold the bag down. So I call it the brick. I mean, there's nothing clever about it really. You just want something heavier than what your vacuum can suck up sitting in the bottom of this, so it doesn't suck the bag up. Sometimes the easiest option is the best option. Okay, so if you don't like the brick idea, here's your second option. What you're going to do is hook your vacuum up to your dust separator with a regular hose, but then you're going to run a second hose out of your first hose down through here into a valve. And what that's going to do is when you turn your vacuum on, it's going to create a vacuum through here, but also create a vacuum through this smaller line. And that's going to suck all the air out between the bag liner and the drum, which is going to suck the bag down and going to hold it in place. Sometimes my own genius terrifies me. So what we're going to do is just go ahead, turn the vacuum on, and I'll show down into the barrel how the bag gets sucked in. So you can see the bag is all kind of bunched up in the middle, but as the vacuum is running, it's creating that vacuum, sucking all the air out between the bag and the actual line of the barrel. And there we go, it's sucked all the way back. So this valve right here isn't necessarily a must-have per se. I just have one and I think it would be a good option to be able to turn that vacuum line off whenever I want. But if you want, you could just have your line running straight into the barrel and then just caulk it off or tape it off or something just to keep it nice and airtight. So none of this actually matters if this doesn't work as well as this. So what we're going to do is just run a couple simple tests. First, we're going to run a single vac on this, then a single vac on this to test the suction to make sure the size of a 55-gallon drum doesn't completely kill the vacuum. Also, something I want to point out, I am using the Dust Topper Pro on this, and I'm using the old style Dust Topper on this one. I did run some tests and they're identical, but you have to modify the old style Dust Topper. And if you haven't done that, I'll show you how to do it in this video. It's super easy. It's just a clamp. You got to cut it a little bit, hook it up. It creates a perfect tight seal down to the bucket so you don't have that loose connection anymore. And it creates a perfect comparison between the Pro and the old one. All right, so first test, vacuum to a 7-gallon bucket. I'm gonna hook them both up to the same 20-foot hose, and we're gonna test the wind speed using an anemometer going in meters per second. So right around 11 meters, not terrible. So let's test the drum. Okay, so there was a 3 meter per second drop, which does kind of suck, but I kind of figured it's going to happen because you're sucking out 55 gallons of volume before you're even getting to the hose, and there's still a 20-foot hose, so it's not going to be great. But what if we could fix that? And by fix it, I mean adding the Super Sucker 3000, 2 vacuums connected to 1 line. Okay, so from my last video when I tested a low pressure, high volume against one of the shop vacs, I set this thing up because I was trying to get as much CFMs as possible. So I connected them both up to a parallel line. And if you remember, I got crazy suction out of this thing. Now, after I tested this, a lot of people requested, does it work with a dust separator? And I actually did that test once, but I actually hooked it up backwards, and a lot of people let me know that. Even to the point people from Dust Stopper reached out to me and was like, dude, you're doing this wrong, you're an idiot. So we're gonna redo the test to hook it up to a dust separator, see if it works as well or at all. So for the first test, we're just gonna do the 2 vacuums hooked up to a 20-foot hose just to get a baseline. Okay, 18.7, now let's hook it up to a dust separator, see if it still works. All right, so that was a 3 meter per second drop hooked up to that, which wasn't too bad. But now here's a real test. Does it actually work? And what I mean by that is the bucket is 100% empty. The vacuums are 100% empty. Will it still suck sawdust up and separate it, or is there too much vacuum pressure going through here to where it's basically gonna make this irrelevant? So let's test that. So, sawdust in the bucket. Little bit of sawdust in here, just a little bit of powder. Little bit of powder in this one. Little bit of powder. Little bit of fine powder. Okay, so that's a huge win for the dust topper. It just shows regardless of how much suction you have running through that, it's still going to do its job. So now let's hook the Super Sucker 3000 up to a drum and see if it still works. Okay, so we got the 2 vacuums hooked up to a single line, hooked up to the vacuum line, hooked up to the dust topper, hooked up to a 20-foot hose. There you are. So 2 vacuums to a central line and a parallel setup to a drum with a dust separator, you hit 11. It's not bad, but one massive glaring issue on this that nobody can overlook, I can't overlook it, is the footprint of this thing. It's freaking huge. 2 vacuums to a central line, I mean, this takes up at least 4.5 feet of area itself. To the line, I mean, that's probably 5 feet. It's huge. But even with how big this thing is and how kind of cumbersome it is, it does work. And there are so many very, very smart people who watch this channel that can probably look at this and come up with 100 different ideas how to compact it and make it work. And before anyone points it out, I'm already painfully aware that all I did was make a camback system. 2 motors hooked up to a drum to a dust separator. It's just a camback system. But that just means I'm on your heels, camback. I'm coming for you. But that is, unless you sponsor me. Is that even legal to say? I gotta wrap this up before I go to jail. All right, as always, thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, check out my Etsy page. All the links to the other videos are going to be down below in the description. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really genuinely appreciate it. And until next time, I'll see everyone later.